we're very fortunate to have a returning presenter today. And this is Officer Thomas Perez. He's back for his 5th year doing this for us. And Tom Perez is currently a police officer with the brand new Menifee Police Department. He started with the city of Menifee in May of 2020. However, prior to that time, he spent nearly 9 years working with the Cal State Fullerton Police Department, where he served as a corporal. While at Cal State Fullerton, he spent 5 years working patrol and the last 3.5 as the Community Services and Crime Prevention Unit. Prior to working with Cal State Fullerton, he started his career working with the Sobota Tribal Police in San Jacinto, California. He's graduated from Los Angeles Sheriff's Department Police Academy in 2011. While at Cal State Fullerton Police Department, he was the department's first drone operator, a women's self-defense instructor, a verbal judo instructor, a field training officer, and was part of the critical response unit. He obtained his bachelor's degree from Arizona State University in broadcasting and a master's degree from Cal State Long Beach in criminal justice. In 2019, he was named Officer of the Year and received a life-saving medal for pulling a suicidal jumper off the top level of the East Side parking structure. He is married and has a 1-year daughter named Brooklyn. He also has 3 dogs, Dodger, Allie, and China. Please welcome Officer Tom Perez.
Hello, everybody. Can you see me?
And if you do your screen share now.
All right. All right. Well, I appreciate everything. I appreciate coming back for the 4th or 5th year, whatever this is. It's kind of unorthodox. I usually love doing this presentation in front of everybody, looking at everybody, but you know, given the times right now, I totally understand what's going on. So I recognize some faces in here before. I've seen this presentation a couple times. I change it up every year a little bit. Some of the information that I did 4 or 5 years ago is still relevant now. And there's some new scams coming out, especially with COVID and tax season. And these scammers, they are very technologically advanced. So the good ones, you don't even know you're getting scammed, even when it's right in front of your face. So we're gonna go over a lot of stuff, teach you how to protect your information, protect your identity. I hope you have a pen and paper. I'm gonna give you information overload. So just take out bits and pieces which work for you. So some of these stories I'm going to tell, and I'm going to hear your stories as well, are going to sound very familiar. You're going to relate to some of the material that I'm talking about. And like I said, I love questions. I don't want to do death by PowerPoint. I know it gets boring. Usually halfway through when I'm doing this live in front of everybody, I can see some people dozing off in the front there, and I know it's time for a break. So any questions? I love having them. We'll try to save a good chunk at the end for some questions. Typically what happens is we stop after an hour and then people come up during the break, and we have a line of people with a whole bunch of questions. So we love them. I guarantee you some of the questions you'll have in the beginning, I'm going to cover later on. So I may divert you a little bit because I want to cover the material in chronological order. So again, thanks for having me here. I love doing this presentation. I was with Cal State Fullerton for almost 9 years, Community Services Crime Prevention Officer. I used to do about 125 presentations a year. And I love educating people, and especially for topics like this, which are extremely relevant because this is such a huge thing nowadays. I want people to know that, you know, there's things that they can do to prevent themselves from being a victim. So I've been a police officer for 10 years, like Russ introduced me. You know, I started with the tribal police. I did that for a year, with Cal State Fullerton for just under 9 years, and going on a year right now at Menifee Police Department. I loved my time at Cal State Fullerton. You know, the main reason I left was just the distance I was commuting. So I was doing 3 hours round trip a day, and I just had a brand new baby at the time. So I was just looking to cut down the commute. But I loved my time at Cal State Fullerton, have nothing bad to say about them. And I'm glad that I was able to come back and continue doing this presentation. So some of the objectives we're going to do today, we're going to define identity theft. Most people have their own definition. We'll go over the legal definition and what it means to me. We'll discuss why you should worry about it, because it's a very serious problem and it can be very costly and very hard to get over. And then we're going to examine how identity theft occurs. I'm going to give you a ton of examples, which happened to me and which happened to other people that I've taken cases on. We'll look at how identity theft has emerged. It's always this, like I said, this technology is so advanced. These people are way smarter than you and me. So we usually don't catch the smart ones. It's the people that get lazy and slow it down a little bit that we usually catch. We'll discuss what is being done about identity theft. There's always new things to try to offset it, but like I said, they're always one step ahead of us. The problem with law enforcement is we're typically reactive to crime, and it's hard to be proactive and determine what's going to come out because we don't know what the technology is going to emerge as. So we typically react to what the crime is, and by then it's too late. I'm going to look at ways to protect yourself. Believe it or not, there's some good ways. There's some good things you can do to protect yourself. It's probably the most valuable portion of this course is the very end. So I know sometimes, seeing a talking head, looking at a PowerPoint can get pretty dull and boring and dry. And, we'll see some people probably leave at some point. But I hope if you do leave that at least you can come back and look at the record, because the information I promise you is invaluable. So every 2 seconds, somebody in the US is a victim of identity theft. Every 2 seconds. By the time this presentation ends today, 4,500 people on average will be the victim of identity theft. It's now the biggest crime in the world. So it'll be at 9,000 seconds that we're going to do this presentation. You divide that by 2. And again, these stats vary. I see something, I think last year I said every second. There's always something new. Believe it or not, some of the identity theft crimes have actually come down a little bit. People are getting a little bit smarter. So hopefully more people are getting this information out. Hopefully nobody here will become a victim, or they can notice stuff that is a little bit skeptical, a little bit strange. So that's the most recent company data breaches. I mean, this is super recent. California DMV. So everybody always thinks their stuff is safe, right? Like, oh, I don't click on those bait clicks. I don't fall for those weird emails that are misspelled and say I'm going to win a whole bunch of money. I don't fall for that stuff. I keep my credit card close to me. It's not that easy, because most of the identity theft that we deal with is out of our hands. They're usually breaches. I saw a stat recently that I had never seen before. I think it was from the California DOJ when I was updating this PowerPoint. And it said 70% of the information that gets breached from these companies, 70% of the users that get their identity stolen will have that information used at one point. So this one is recently, if you want to later on click on that link, you can see the press release that the DMV sent out. Wasn't a huge thing. It dealt with a third party company that they deal with that verifies like the addresses on the registration addresses, I believe it was. So you can go to their website, it's california.dmv. I got this yesterday, and this is a live site. It says potentially impacts vehicle registration records. No driver license information was compromised. But again, it lets you know that the DMV is using third parties, and we never know how secure that stuff is. So somebody's information is out there that should have been through no fault of their own. Just go and register your vehicle. Some more breaches. I try to put some ones that you're probably familiar with. Kaiser. I'm sure there's a ton of people that have Kaiser out there. This was the Northern California branch. They also put a press release out a couple days ago, and that dealt with, I think, one of their users, one of their people that worked for them, used somebody's information that they shouldn't have had access to. So again, out of our hands. You never know. Even with these major companies, we're about to show you some big time companies that have some serious breaches. Usually I start this off and I say, how many people here have a credit card? Everybody raises their hand. How many people have a social security card? Everybody raises a hand. And then I say, who's been a victim of identity theft? And we'll probably get about half the people, maybe a little bit more. I can guarantee you that everybody that's in this chat room right now, somebody has your information that shouldn't have it. I can guarantee you that. If you've ever used a credit card or you have a social security number, somebody has your information right now. They might not be using it. It might be in a database with 20 million other numbers, but somebody has that information that shouldn't. And remember, according to that stat, 70% of those are going to be used at some point. Chase Bank, probably a third of the people here have Chase Bank. They put out a press release back in December. Again, same thing. It dealt with an employee who was accessing information that they shouldn't have been accessing. Here's a slew of other ones. I only put like the popular names that you probably heard of or you might be involved in. US Bank, Sam's Club. I mean, I'm sure we're all part of that, or half of us are part of that. Some big universities, Rady's Children's Hospital. I have a 1-year-old daughter. She goes to Rady's. So I'm going to tell you a funny story in a couple minutes that happened with my daughter. And it probably came from that breach right there. So you can look at some of the names on there. You can go to the California DOJ website. That's where I got some of these from. These are just the most recent ones, and there was like 5 pages long. So I just pulled out a couple that you might recognize. Blue Shield of California, that's my insurance company. They're notorious. They've had 2 or 3. Aetna's up there, City of Torrance, Syracuse, San Diego High School. And these are very recent. Now, they might not be huge breaches, but they're typically just an employee who has gained access to somebody's info he shouldn't have had. Again, out of your hands, nothing you did wrong. You know, just because you're an Aetna customer or a Kaiser customer doesn't mean that you should have your stuff breached, right? You're doing nothing wrong. You're using a major company and one of their employees is giving your information away. And again, they usually do that for money or they sell it on the dark web. We're going to go over that too later on, different levels of websites. As of February 2019, more than 740 million accounts were stolen from 24 websites found online in the online markets. And again, this is the dark web. Most of you don't even know what that is. You think of the World Wide Web. You've probably heard of the dark web, and you just thought it was like people doing shady stuff, which it is, but it's an actual thing. And I'm gonna open your eyes to the different levels of websites that are nowadays. Again, we'll do that in a little while. Typically, the sellers ask for between $14,000 and $20,000 in Bitcoin, untraceable. This isn't like they're not going to leave their mark. Like if you're buying something online and you have a trace, an email trace, an IP trace, we don't see that with Bitcoin. 2019, I put these out last year. They're still super relevant. You might not know what Fortnite is, but I guarantee if you have grandkids, they're all playing Fortnite online right now. So 200 million users compromised worldwide. 200 million users. That's a ton. MyFitnessPal, that's owned by Under Armour. That's their online app. It tracks your fitness progress. They were compromised 2 years ago. 150 million accounts stolen. MyHeritage, it's a little bit lesser known. Most people have heard of like 23andMe or any of those Ancestry.com type websites. Sorry, my dog's barking in the background over here. Those were compromised, and I'm going to show you in a minute the relevance of having these Ancestry.com websites, what information they can get on there. Dunkin' Donuts, if you're from the East Coast, you definitely heard of Dunkin' Donuts. I know they're coming out west in full force over the last couple of years. They were hacked twice in the last 3 months. So again, I know we can't raise our hand here, but in a couple minutes we're going to break, and I want to hear your stories. I want to know who's been a victim of identity theft. We don't have a huge time for discussion, so we'll keep stories pretty quick. I'll answer 1 or 2 questions, and we'll save the good ones for the very end. But in a couple minutes, we're going to break and think of those stories because I want to hear them. I want to see maybe what we could have done different and how relevant it is today. Like I mentioned, if you have a social security card or if you have a social security number or a credit card, your info is in the wrong hands. I can almost guarantee it. Almost guarantee it. Social security number is public knowledge. And so pretty much anybody can get that stuff. A lot of your DMV stuff, anybody can get. Your license plate, it's public knowledge if they know how to access that. I'm going to show you something here in about 5 minutes, how easy it is to get information from you and your family online for free in like 5 minutes, totally free. So there's a little misconception about social security numbers and how they worked. They've been around for nearly 100 years, and they were supposed to be limited to Social Security programs when they first came out. As we know now, that's not what they've turned into. It's actually the number one most frequently used in the United States anyway, the frequently used identification number. So they don't go in chronological order. Some people think, if the first person ever to have a number was 0000001, and then the second person was 0000002, it doesn't work like that. You can actually tell a lot of information from a Social Security number, and that's why they have value. So again, they're not issued sequentially. The first three numbers actually represent the state in which you applied for. So my first three numbers are 062, and people that know this little trick, they always say, "Oh, are you from the East Coast? You from New York or New Jersey?" And I said, "Yeah, how'd you know that?" I'm like, "Oh, from your Social Security number." So just from getting that little bit of information, people already know where I was originated from. The second three are the group's numbers, and the last four are the serial numbers. So those will actually go in chronological order. So we're going to do a little bit of true or false. I don't know if people can get these. I probably won't. I'll give a second for people to answer in their head. You don't have to queue up right now, but again, don't queue up and answer these. Just think in your head, and I'll give you a second to think about it. So you can get a different Social Security number if you are the victim of identity theft. True or false? It's true, but that's only used as a last resort, and it is very difficult. So this is kind of true with an asterisk. You would have to deplete every possible resource to go get a new Social Security number. The government doesn't like giving more than one Social Security number to more than one person because of the amount of fraud out there. Seniors age 65 and older are the most targeted group for identity theft. What do you think? I guarantee you most people are saying true. They're close, but they're actually the number two. So students age 18 to 25 are the most, the victims most often. Seniors are right behind there. And the reason for that is because most students in that age group, they aren't savvy to the real world and the scams out there. They would never take the time to take 2.5 hours and sit through a presentation like this and learn something. And they haven't had enough life experience to know. They're very trusting. As tech savvy as they are, they don't really pay attention to the little things. So when they get a link or they get a text message, text messages are huge scam things nowadays. Don't think because you get a text that it's from somebody you already know. Big scam things. So they're just haven't had the savvy yet. They usually get hit for a little bit less because they don't have as much money. Seniors or older adults, 55 and older, usually get taken for a lot more money when they are taken. Identity theft is easily resolved. I think we just covered this, and it's pretty easy to think. It's not. I mean, some people have, they've had a bank charge which they disputed, and boom, the bank reversed it, and they looked into it, and it was easy peasy. Those are great. The bank does a good job with overcoming small charges. But if you've been a real victim of identity theft, I'm talking about somebody opened up an account under your name, somebody's filing taxes and taking your tax return, like serious identity theft like that, it is very hard to overcome. They are very hard to resolve. There's jurisdictional nightmares. Who's handling this? We got to try to track the person down. For those of you that don't know, most of these people, whenever you get a fraudulent text or a phishing type text or phone call, sometimes you'll get a phone call, you'll answer it, and it might be from a 949 number, it might be from a 714 number. You're like, oh, it's probably somebody I know, it's local. Those aren't real numbers. Those are what they call VoIP, VoIP numbers. I forget what it stands for. It's voice something internet protocol. Those are super hard to track. At the level that we're at for a local police department, a city police department, we don't have the ability to do it. This would have to be something that is a major identity theft and that the government was probably involved, some type of government agency, FBI. They would probably have the manpower and the capability to do that. But when we track down these numbers, and they're really easy to find out, you can go to these websites, type in the number, and it'll tell you where the number was originated from. These people they're smart. They're not stupid enough to call from a throwaway phone, a real phone number. I mean, they're never going to call you from their real cell phone. So it's super hard to track down. It's always in a different state. You got to figure out where it originated, who sent it to you, what's the loss. It's just a nightmare. And that's on the law enforcement end. When you're talking about, people outside of law enforcement, so maybe a bank that you got scammed out of 20 grand in your account and the bank is doing their own investigation, it takes forever to get all their reports, their investigation, to get it off your credit. It's a nightmare. It probably take over a year. So it does take a lot of manpower hours. True or false, the best way to prevent identity theft is not to shop online, right? You just go in person, just give me your credit card. Is that the easiest way? No, it's not. More than half of the identity theft happens offline, believe it or not. In the second half of this, we're going to go over some common scams where they use your credit card, and we got to figure out how are they getting the information from your credit card. My dad he uses 2 credit cards. He thinks he's defeated the system. He uses one credit card if the person is going to take the credit card and it's going to be out of his sight. So when restaurants used to be open and we used to go sit down, used to see back, 5-6 years ago and before and prior, you would pay for the check at the end. They put the check on the table. You put your credit card in the little folder there, and the waiter would go to the back wherever the cashier, wherever the point of sale system was, and they would run your credit card. You have no idea what's going on. That used to be one of the best ways to get your credit card information, because typically people that are working at restaurants aren't making a ton of money, right? This isn't a career for them. This is a job. It's a cash job. It's a way to get some quick money. Some people are just day to day that work in the restaurant industry. And so they get approached by scammers. Let's tell you what, hey, we'll give you $100 every time you get a credit card and you swipe it through the legitimate point of sale system. Also swipe it into this machine. It's called a skimmer. We're going to go over that in a little while. And they get your credit card information. He also has a second credit card, which never leaves his site. That has a larger limit. So my dad swears he's defeated the identity theft system, but he hasn't. Here's a good one. Women are more concerned about identity theft than men. What do you think? What do you think, ladies out there? Are you guys more concerned, or is it the men? It's actually true. This is an older survey, but it showed that women are more concerned on every question about identity theft. And 4 out of 10, 40% were very, very concerned. So hopefully after this presentation, the guys will be very, very concerned as well, because it's a huge problem. The most common type of identity theft is credit card fraud. So I know we've talked a lot in a short time about credit card fraud. What do you guys think? It's actually true. Almost half of identity theft is credit card fraud. You will be happy to know, though, that in the past year to year and a half, credit card fraud is actually starting to decline a little bit. So people are actually getting more savvy to some of these scams, and they're protecting their information a little bit more. Drug trafficking has officially been replaced by identity theft as the #1 crime in the world. What do you think? Dealing drugs or getting your stuff stolen online? It's true. 40 million cases in 2016. The cases have gone down in 2020, and I think that's because half of the world was stuck inside and they were spending a little less money. So I expect those numbers probably in 2022, when hopefully COVID subsides a little bit, and hopefully life normalcy returns back to what it used to be. I expect these cases to go way up again. So 40 million cases in 2016. Minorities are more often victims of identity theft. What do you think? You think race has anything to do with it? Different cultures have different values. It's false. It doesn't really. Actually, when you look at the numbers, they're all pretty close to percentage-wise. White non-Hispanics make up 38% of all IT cases, but if you start going down the line, I think Hispanic Americans were like 28%, and Asian Americans were at 24%. So I mean, they're all pretty close. It's probably white non-Hispanics, probably because we're the bulk of the overall United States population. So it would make sense that we would have the most IT cases. But in terms of race or gender, it doesn't really matter. We pretty much see equal scammers across the board. 13% of the world's white collar crime, which is identity theft, is perpetrated in California. What do you think? 13%. We went over 40 million people to begin scammed. 13% of that comes from California. Is that true or false? It's actually true. We get a ton of people. And not only is it true, but the stuff that happens in California, the white collar crime, is major white collar crime. I think it's true because the financial loss is the biggest in California. So you have the best chance of getting your retirement savings account wiped out. Not this little nickel and dime stuff they're doing on the street where they got your credit card number and they went to Walmart to upload, you know, to buy a couple $100 worth of items. I'm not talking nickel and dime stuff like that. I'm talking about $50,000, $100,000, your lifetime savings wiped out. Most of that happens in California, and most of it happens in Fashion Island and Newport Beach. So New York is a close second, but most of it's happening in California. So I hope we don't go into this, you know, eyes wide shut that, you know, it's not happening in my backyard. So let's take a couple minutes here, and we're going to answer some questions. So far, I know we haven't gone over a lot. We've just touched the surface. We're really going to go into in depth, but I want to hear some questions on some of the people that have been scammed here. We'll keep it super short because I know there's going to be a lot of questions. But who can give me one example of when they've been a victim of identity theft?
I'll start out, Officer Perez. I had a situation several years ago when I went through my bank's ATM, drive-through ATM, and they evidently had a skimmer on it. And then fortunately, maybe a week later, I looked at my online account and saw some withdrawals, just you know, a little each day. And then the withdrawals started to be at different locations farther away. So I contacted my bank. We resolved it fairly quickly. And I never went through that drive-through again.
I've had a similar experience that I didn't include in this presentation, but skimmers are a big deal. We're gonna go over that in the second half. I always say if there's a machine where you're gonna put your card into, whether it's at the bank, ATMs are huge ones. They're huge. The bank and the gas station is the second biggest one. Just give it a little nudge. See if it'll pop off, because they're not permanent fixtures. They're probably just taped on, glued, barely glued on. If you give it a little tug, it'll probably pop off. And make sure you report that too. The ones at the gas station, the clerks are typically involved in, the cashier. So there's also somebody that's probably looking around, that's in the area, that's waiting to get that information from you. So what he's talking about, a skimmer, is a machine that goes over a legitimate access device. So when you put your card into the ATM, there's a machine that the scammers put that goes over it. Now, you don't think twice about it, right? Because it's a legitimate ATM, it's a legitimate gas pump. You go there to put your card in, and your card is actually swiping through twice. So it goes through their machine, and then it goes through the legitimate machine. So you always have the machine is actually working. You actually put the numbers in. You know, you take cash out, you put money, whatever you're doing, it still works. So if you go to the gas pump, you're still able to access the gas, but on the way in, they've taken the number off the card. So like I say, always just give it a little tug. I see people say that they pay cash for gas. I mean, that's great. If you can do that, awesome. I know cash is like going out the window nowadays, especially with the younger people. So I know the older generation is a little bit more apt to use checks and cash. So yeah, if you can pay cash, that's probably the best way not to be a victim.
We have another example. Anthony raised his hand. Anthony, you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure. First of all, thank you for this presentation. Several years ago, my sister had her tax return stolen, and I don't believe they've ever gotten everything straightened out to this day. And it even got to the point to where someone purchased a Mercedes and had it delivered at a bank parking lot. I believe it was a Bank of America. I don't know if I should say that online or not. But anyway, it's a mess. Like I said, it was several years ago, and I think their credit is still screwed up pretty bad.
Yeah, so there's a way they can dispute a lot of the stuff. It's such a hassle. Trying to get stuff off your credit that's not legit, it's such a hassle. And the worst thing about identity theft of that caliber, that's major caliber stuff there. This is the time for tax season. You're gonna see a ton of people using tax scams. Most of the time they get your number to see if you're gonna get a refund. They'll reroute the address or the refund to their address or to their bank account. But it's ongoing, especially if they get your information and they start opening accounts and you have to prove that it's not you. Most of the time they do it, it's in a different state. We can, it's a little bit easier to prove, but I'm assuming everybody here is in California. If somebody locally took your stuff and opened up local accounts, it would be so hard to prove, and the amount of manpower and hours that have to go into it, and you rarely get the money back, or you rarely get to rectify stuff. You can just sometimes save your credit. So it's a hassle. It's not fun from anybody.
We have another hand up with Claire. Claire, if you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, this is so depressing. Does anybody ever get caught and put in jail?
Best question. The good ones, no. So the people that get caught are the local ones, the people that use the skimmers, like the low level ones, or on the complete opposite end, people that are like Bernie Madoff type people that are just doing like millions of dollars worth of scams where they put a ton of resources. But the low to mid level, very hard to figure out. I mean, like I said, at our local city level of police department, we typically don't have one person or a team that specializes in this stuff. At my level as a patrol officer, I'm just taking the basic information and see what I can get. The good ones don't leave a lot of leads. These hackers are way smarter than us when it comes to technology. So some of the scams, yes, like I said, the low level ones. I was at, I think it was El Pollo Loco a couple years ago. Like I paid for my fast food at the drive-through, and the person bent down to swipe my card, which I thought was super unusual. And I kept thinking, oh, that person has a skimmer. I should have said something, but I didn't. I didn't want to make accusations. And lo and behold, 3 months later, that card was compromised. And I always thought, I bet you it was from that. You can never figure it out. Sometimes you'll get it when they do. I'm going to show you in a couple minutes a smash and grab where they like physically stole my credit card and went to like Walmart. You can get somebody from like that. They might have video. But when you're talking about like just mid-level, anything from like $500 to $10,000 worth of loss, which is the majority of identity theft, they're real hard to find, and they're way smarter than us. So you have to wait for someone to trip up, make a mistake. We don't catch the smart ones. We always say that in law enforcement. Unfortunately, that's just the reality. So you probably have to get it to a level of loss where the federal government was involved. So we'll take one more question and go back to this.
We have a chat from Lily. To avoid skimmer fraud, can I cover the top of the credit card? Will that work?
So no, it won't. So when the skimmer machine is actually taking the information from the magnet. So if you look on the back of your credit card, you have that little strip there. That's the information for your credit card. They're not actually taking the number from the front. What they're going to do is they're going to do this. They're going to get that number is going to be downloaded to the machine. A couple hours later, they'll pop the machine off. They'll plug that into their computer, and they'll have everybody that's gone through that machine, whether it's ATM or gas or restaurant, like happened to me, and it'll download the information. The information will have your name, with your name on the credit card, your credit card number, your expiration date, and the 3-digit number on the back. What they do from there is they go to like Staples or something, and they buy just general cards. I think I might have one right here. Okay, so it kind of looks like this. They'll go to Staples and they'll buy this card, and on the back it just has a stripe, but they're blank like this. It's just a blank card, and some of them have a stripe. You can buy a 100-pack for like $50. You can get them on Amazon, and then what they do is they re-swipe the card, and your information is downloaded onto this card. Now it's just a plain white card. There's nothing on it, right? You're not going to give that to somebody at a restaurant, but if you can go to pay at the pump, you can get the number and pay for stuff online. You can go, half the time they don't even take your credit card anymore, especially nowadays with COVID, right? You go to Stater Brothers or Ralph's, Albertsons. You don't give the clerk your credit card. There's usually a little machine there. You You punch it in, you put in your code, and then boom. So very rarely are we actually giving people that are credit cards nowadays. I know when I go to some of the restaurants or anything, the restaurants have the little kiosk on the table nowadays, or they did when they were open. That's probably going to be the way to go nowadays, but there could be a skimmer on that too. So just always give it a little thing, but it has nothing to do with the number that's on the front. It has everything to do with the number that's embedded in the card on the magnet strip.
We have one last chat before we
Sure.
resume about using the tap kind of credit card like Costco does. Is that more secure?
They are a little bit more secure, and I see there's a question right above it too about the new kind. I think you're talking about the chip on the card, the new cards. Yes, they are more secure, but there's always going to be a way to beat that stuff. So, and this is the biggest problem. The credit card companies, they don't care. They don't care. It's just it's a loss tax write-off for them. They don't care how much money you're losing. I promise you that. You know, Chase doesn't care that somebody found your card or skimmed your number and made $100 purchase. They'll refund that to you, no problem. They don't care because it's just a write-off for them. So they don't put a lot of resources into it. Again, now, if it was a little bit more expensive and you had a whole $100,000 retirement account, then they might. But at this low-level stuff, which is the majority of things, they're not putting any resources into it. What are those blank cards at Staples for? So these are used when I used to work in the restaurant industry. This is my access card to get into the police station. So it has RFID on it, but a lot of those restaurants, when they swipe into the machine, into the cashier machine, that's what those are used for, those blank cards. All right, we're gonna save some of these questions for later. We'll come back to some of them, and we'll continue with the presentation here. All right, the #1 scam in America right now, the COVID vaccine scam. I heard some people were talking about it before we went live here, when people were just checking in. It's a huge one, especially for people that are 55 and older. So, you know, the rep calls you up on the phone. First of all, let me say this. If you're going to take anything from this presentation, take this away. If somebody's knocking at your door, especially if somebody's calling you, even if you get a letter in the mail, it's probably a scam. If you're getting a text message or a phone call, somebody's telling you something's messed up on your account, somebody's trying to sell you something, it's probably a scam. Okay, there's always a number where you could call back, a legitimate number. We're going to go over some scams in a little while where like Apple calls you up, Chase calls you up. It's not them. They're not calling you up. I promise you that. And if they are, in the few rare occasions, call the 1-800 number on the back of the credit card. Go to the website, call that number. You can always call them back. If it's legit, they're still going to have the information. So here we go with the COVID scam. People call you up on the phone. Hey, sir, you ready to get your vaccine? We have some available in your area. They never know where you are. You're just in your area. $299. You can get one today. You can get one tomorrow. We can do that right over the phone right now. You know, people are so scared. They see loved ones dying all around them, people getting really sick. I don't think there's anybody in America right now that doesn't see the severity of the coronavirus, and everybody wants to get treated, right? Especially as you get older. So this sounds great to them. You know, for me, my parents got vaccinated 4 weeks ago. They were supposed to get the second shot yesterday, and they don't have any. So you can imagine how scared everybody gets. You get a call like this, it's all about timing. They call you up. You know, you're at that point in life where you're getting a little bit scared, and boom, you pay them $299, and then there's no vaccine coming, there's nowhere to go, and they already have your information. So just be wary about stuff like that. I always say, if you're getting a phone call, it's too good to be true. It probably is. The other one we have going on right now, tax season, right? We're mid-late February. Taxes are due by April. Everybody should have got their W-2s and their 1099s by now. IRS is calling you up. That's the big one. Hey, this is the IRS. You owe back taxes. And if you legitimately owe back taxes, this will definitely be an eye opener. But even if you don't, you know, most people can't remember what kind of return they've got over the last couple of years, whether they owed money, they got money back. They start thinking, oh, shoot, did I screw up my taxes? Some people like to do them themselves. You know, they do the easy form, boom, boom. Takes 1 second, but you never know what you screwed up. It's the IRS. The IRS is calling me up right now. I better deal with this. And they always say, you know, if you don't deal with it, the sheriff's going to come pick you up in 30 minutes. Or I had one guy call me up recently say that the sheriff's going to come pick me up in 30 minutes. I said, uh-oh, not the sheriff. He doesn't even have any jurisdiction here. I hope he doesn't come to get me. So they always threaten stuff. This is the biggest thing. Again, if you're going to take something from this presentation, remember this. Anytime that they tell you to pay for something, they're always going to say either gift cards, a wire transfer, or some type of non-cash payment. So usually like a MoneyGram, right? The IRS doesn't tell you to go to Walmart and pick up $500 gift cards to pay for your tax debt. That just doesn't happen. The IRS doesn't do that at all. Okay, if you legitimately own money to the IRS, you will get an official form in the mail. They'll tell you how to handle stuff online. Go make sure it's the irs.gov or whatever the site is. Make sure the site is legitimate. There's always a way to legitimize everything. Okay. Another thing we see too is people that have strong foreign accents, especially from India. That's the #1 place overseas where we see fraudulent calls coming in. They have huge call centers out there. They make a ton of money out there. You know, if somebody has a very strong, thick accent, think twice about it. Now, that's not to say that, you know, people in America don't have strong accents and with legitimate calls, but we do see that a lot. The other thing too is they get very angry with you if you don't cooperate with them. I'm pretty sure a call taker at the IRS could care less whether you actually pay for your taxes or not. They don't get bonuses or anything like that. So just think of that. And time is never on their side. So the longer you're on the phone, the harder it is for them to get the scam going, because the scams, they need to be done right away. Otherwise, the longer you wait, the more people get they're onto the scam. So remember, the longer you are, you'll see them getting very, very angry. They start yelling at you, cursing at you. The police are coming right now. The sheriff's coming right now to get you. It's all a scam. There's another thing that's out of our hands, and this is pretty much shame on companies that sell gift cards. So we see a lot of this over the past year. So for those of you that don't know what a bot is or a spider, it's a program that these hackers write where they don't have to do it themselves. It'll start putting in. So if you've ever gotten a gift card, and let's say you got a gift card for Christmas from Walmart, wherever, fill in the blank, Target, Visa gift card, and the person forgot to put how much the balance is on it, or it doesn't say on the card. There's a site you can go to, you type in the gift card, and it'll tell you what the legitimate amount is. Now, there's also a code on the back that you have to give. So what happens is this bot, which is a program, will run every possible credit card number into the system through that database until they find something that has a balance. Now, just because they know the balance, they still need to know that number on the back. Usually it's like 5 to 8 digits. So you have to have both when you're trying to find out what the balance is. Even when you redeem the card, sometimes some of the cards you'll see the cashier take they'll scratch it off to reveal the number. The bot will just generate numbers, 8-digit numbers, until it finds one that fits. So when you get a gift card, just make sure that you use it in a fairly quick time. You don't have to go out and do it the next day or anything like that. But my mom has gift cards from like 3 years ago, and I'm always telling her those have probably been erased by now from the scammers that have taken the number, and you don't even know about it. So I'm going to tell about my experiences from low level to a little bit bigger. So back in the day when AOL used to be a big deal, back in like the mid 90s, I received an email from AOL saying that I needed to log in. So I saw the AOL screen pop up, username and password, similar to what you're looking at right now. Put in my name, put in my password, I hit sign in, nothing happened. Put my name in again, my username, my password, I hit sign in again, nothing happened. I did it a third time, nothing happened. By then I figured the link wasn't working. Well, the next day I get a call from AOL. Say, oh, I'm sorry. I went to log on the next day and my account was closed. It says call the 1-800 number. So I called the 1-800 number, and it was a legit number. It was a legit AOL representative. And they said that they froze my account because I sent 10,000 spam emails. I said, I've never sent any spam emails. So they unsuspended my account. I logged on with a different password that I changed, and I went to the sent emails, and sure as heck, there were all the emails that the spammer sent. Now, I didn't lose anything financially. This was, over 20 years ago. It was just a company that was trying to, all the emails were getting blocked from them because they had been notified as spam. So they were trying to get a legitimate email, which they did me, and they had me. They put out their spam emails through my legitimate email. So again, no financial loss, but that was very eye-awakening. And I tell you the story is because I didn't think twice about it. I logged on, I saw an email, it had the AOL logo, everything looked legit. I didn't take the time to actually look at what the website was or the email address where it was coming from. If you do that 9 times out of 10, you'll see that it's not right. You'll get an email from, Chase Bank, and the email is coming from chasebank@gmail.com. Chase Bank doesn't have Gmail. I promise you that. It would have to be like security@chasebank.com or something to that level. You look at the website, and it's all numbers. It doesn't say chasebank.com. It says, 125.653, because that's an IP. So keep that in mind. That's still done nowadays. That's the #1 phishing scam. This was a good one. I used to work at Landmark Restaurant in Corona Del Mar, Newport Beach area. I was a manager there right before I was a police officer. And I got a phone call one day, and it was from a video relay service. And what they told me was the caller on the other end of the phone was deaf. So obviously he couldn't hear what I was saying. He couldn't have a phone conversation with me. This video relay service, what they were doing was they were the middleman. So the person who had a hearing disability was typing on his computer to the video relay service, and that service was physically telling me what that person was saying. And what the person was doing was they were ordering about $2,000 worth of food, and this was a pretty high-end restaurant. And I'm like, great, this is an awesome order. He said he was a grandfather, and his grandson just graduated high school, and he was in the hospital. He couldn't be there, but he wanted to pay for all the food for a party. So he wanted Landmark to cater for everything. So I started putting the order in. It was for 2 days from now. He said he was going to have a third-party company come pick it up, and he wanted to know if we could tip the person in cash and just add that to the bill, because they were a cash-only business. And that's when something triggered me. Up until that point, I didn't think twice about it. Huge order. I thought it would be great for business. So after that, I actually Googled it, and I realized that it was a scam. And what would have happened was, I think the tip was like $500. The person would have came, the third party would have came. It's just a scammer. Came to the restaurant, picked up $2,000 worth of food, and I would have paid him $500 in cash. And then we would have realized a couple of days later that credit card that he gave us, or she gave us, is no good. But at that time, it would have been too late. We would have lost the money. So that's similar to what I was talking about. Time is of the essence with these people, because the longer they wait, sometimes they'll send you a check in the mail. Oh yeah, go cash that check. They'll send you a check for an item purchased. So you're selling something on eBay for $100. They send you a check for $500. Yeah, I'm from Nigeria, or I'm from overseas. Take out $100 for the item. Take out another $50 for shipping and your problem, and just mail me the item along with the $350 in cash. That doesn't even make any sense. People do it all the time, right? The longer you wait, the more they realize, the bank is going to realize the check is not cleared. So typically, if you put a check in the bank right away, it'll semi-clear, right? They'll give you some of the funds, and then 2 days later, they realize it's a fraudulent check. They take the money back. By then, it's too late. I've had 2 of these happen recently. So a caller called from US Bank, which I actually had an account with them, and asked me if I made a purchase from Best Buy in Nashville, Tennessee for $2,700. And when I said no, they asked me if I had the card in my possession. I said, yes, I do. They asked me for the credit card number. Never give your full credit card number to anybody over the phone. If it's a legitimate representative from the bank, they'll usually ask you for the last 4 or the last 6. So I was kind of onto that one already. I didn't do it. I told the person I'll call the number back on the back of the card, and then I'll give the number. So when I call back, I said, hey, I need to talk to teller 126 is what they said they were. And the legitimate person said, we don't have anybody, we don't run numbers like that. You probably were part of our scam. So again, I had the wherewithal not to do that. Recently, I drove across country to Wisconsin about 6 months ago, and while we were in Iowa, I got a call saying, "Did I make some purchases?" This is from the bank, legitimate call from the bank, from School's First Credit Union that says, "Did I, try to get $200 in gas in some place in Riverside?" And I said, "I'm not even in the state." So it was good that they had a red flag that I happened to not be in the state at that time. Had I been locally, they probably wouldn't have red flagged that because Riverside isn't that far from me. I probably would have found out by logging onto my account and looking to see $200 in gas was missing from my card. Again, the banks are really good about reversing that stuff. They could see that my path across the country from my charges that I was using the card. So that was easy to overcome. This is a good one. So this is the old school way of doing things. This is when I lived in Lake Elsinore. This is my mailbox that was broken into back in February. I think it was 2015. Actually, it's funny because if you look closely at this picture, you can see the police officer's business card in the side there, as well as a note on the bent portion of the door. That note was from me. This mailbox had been broken into about 6 times. And I kept telling the mailman, I put a note up, "Please don't put the mail in here anymore. I live right across the street. Just turn around and put the mail, under my mat right behind you." So obviously it didn't pay any mind to it. The relevance of that was that my W-2 and my wife's W-2 were stolen. The police ended up finding my wife's W-2 about 3 months later. Mine was never recovered, but now that information is out there somewhere. So I always have to have fraudulent checks and credit monitoring on my personal stuff because somebody definitely has my information out there. And if you think about tax returns, you got your name, your address, your job, where you work, how much money you're making. I think your social security number's on there. There's a lot of info on there. They can do a lot of damage. So this is the time of the year where people are actually going through the mail old school style. And again, this is the old local smash and grab jobs. This is what I was talking about. You'll see this a lot. Not really identity theft, but this is more fraud. My wife, for some reason, never takes her purse out of the car, always leaves it on the seat. Even married to a cop, she still does this. And this was, again, like Elsinore. In 2016, she had her purse in the front seat. They did a smash and grab. We didn't even notice it. By the time I had even realized it, they had gone to 2 Walmarts in Elsinore and Marietta, a couple gas stations. They went to get some food. And then finally, the credit card company called me up and they asked me, "Hey, did you go to 2 different Walmarts?" And they asked me, "Did I have the card in my possession?" I looked, I'm like, "Yeah, I have the card in my possession." They said, "Oh, it's not your card, it's your wife's card." This was about 7 in the morning. I was driving to work. I called my wife up, "Hey, do you have the credit card in your possession?" She's like, "Oh, it's in my wallet. I think that's in the car." Of course, she runs out. She sees that the window's been smashed and they use the card. So those are the small ones, and you can usually get your money back on those, which we did. This was the first thing that ever happened. This is the second one that ever happened to me, legitimate identity theft. I talked about the AOL account earlier. This is when I lived in Tempe, Arizona, when I was a student going to Arizona State University. And it was the early mid 90s. And I was obsessed with getting credit cards, gas cards, department store cards. I was like 20 years old. I thought it was the best thing ever. I thought it was cool to have a whole bunch of credit cards. So anytime I got an offer in the mail, I apply, boom, I would get it. I had no idea it was ruining my credit. And again, this is why people 18 to 25 are the #1 group for getting scammed, right? Because they don't have the knowledge of everything. I used to have all these cards in a little day planner. I went to the ATM, took out the card. I think it was Bank of America. I took out the Bank of America card. I put the day planner up top. I did my transaction and I left. Put the card in my pocket and I left. Well, the day planner I left in there with all my credit cards. So I happened to have a Discover card at the time, and they were calling me up like every day. This is before cell phones. They were calling my landline. And you can usually tell when it's a telemarketer or somebody that doesn't know you. They're like, "Can we speak to Mr. Thomas Perez?" I know it's not somebody I know right there. So they would say, "Hey, this is Chuck from Discover Card." And I usually just hang up. What they were trying to tell me was that somebody was using the Discover Card. Now, I'd never used it ever. I just thought it was cool to have. So I told the guy, "I've never used that credit card." He says, "Well, somebody's using it at the mall." So again, they canceled it. They reversed the money, but that was a little bit of a hassle too. That was back in the 90s when this stuff wasn't as prevalent and it was harder to get your stuff reversed. I ended up getting it reversed, didn't cost me anything. It was the first sign of a hassle that I had to deal with everything and prove that it wasn't me, especially since it was local. And this one happened super recently. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this one. I went to my dad's house. They recently moved out here a couple of years ago from New York. They live close to me now. And my dad was on the phone with somebody. And I'm not paying attention. I'm talking to my mom. And all of a sudden, I can hear him talking. And he's going back and forth on the computer. He's on the phone. I said, Dad, who are you talking to? He said, oh, it's somebody from tech support. They called me up because I have some problems with my computer. So I said, they called you up? I'm like, how would they know if they have problems? He's like, I don't know. You know, it's tech support. They're good. You know, my computer's been running a little bit slow lately. I said, let me talk to him. So I got on the phone and the guy was already logged onto my dad's computer. So when he called, he said, hey, this is Bob from tech support. We noticed your computer's got some viruses on it. We can get rid of that for you before it gets too crazy. Just go to this website. That'll give us remote access. My dad did, click the link, boom. The guy was actually controlling my dad's computer from remotely wherever he was. And again, he had a strong Indian accent. That was the first red flag for me. And he had access to my dad's computer. What I did was I unplugged it. We closed the link and I unplugged the computer from the wall, including the internet link. And I told my dad, you got to change the password right away. I have no idea what information that guy took from my dad's computer, but I know if that was me, I have a ton of info on the computer, and somebody could do some financial damage to me if they had got a hold of my computer. And I'm a little bit more savvy than most people too. So it does happen out there. So you might get some pop-ups like this. Sometimes you're on the internet, a virus alert from Microsoft, your computer's blocked. What happens is they'll say, yeah, if you want this unblocked, go to Walmart, get some gift cards and give us the gift card numbers. Same thing. That's the red flag right there, is the gift card. So if you ever see something like this, make sure that you don't go any further than that. So let's open up for a couple of questions here. I see some things popping up, and we'll talk about some stuff before we go forward. So somebody has a question here about debit cards. This is the thing about debit cards. You can still use a debit card as a credit card if it has the Visa or the MasterCard logo on it. A lot of people don't know that. People always say, well, how could my debit card or ATM card get compromised because they don't have the PIN number? It doesn't matter. Sometimes you'll go to a restaurant, you'll go to Walmart or wherever, and they'll say, do you want to use that as credit or debit? The debit tends to be a little bit more secure and harder it's easier for them to challenge if something goes wrong. So let's say you say there's a charge and you didn't that's not your charge, but it shows that you put your debit card number in. That would be a little bit harder to overcome because they're going to say, well, how did the person get your PIN code? There's a way. We're going to go over it in about 5 minutes how they can get it, but it's a little bit harder to overcome. When it's just a credit card, anybody can use that. So don't fall for the trap that you think it's a debit card and that means that it's like writing a check. It's not. They can use it as a credit card. So I think she's doing a chat one there. She doesn't have a microphone. It says, to whom did you say we should not give our full account number to in regards to your credit card? If somebody calls you up, you can give your full, sometimes they pose as a credit card company and they ask you for the credit card number. So like the example I told you, when US Bank called me up and said that my account has been compromised and I had a US Bank account, I thought, oh man, somebody got me again. They said, do you have the credit card in your possession? I looked, I did. They said, what's the number on there so we can verify it? They would never do that. The credit card company would never ask you for the full number for that exact reason. And that's how I knew it was a scammer. Now, sometimes you have to give you're going to make an online order, you're going to give, or a phone order. You're going to call Food to Go, you're going to call Grubhub or something, or DoorDash. And they're going to need your credit card company, your credit card number. Obviously, you're going to give the full credit card number when you're ordering something. You just have to make sure that it's legit. But what I say not to give your card number to It's people that call you for the information. If somebody's calling you, you could always call them back at a legitimate number that you can find on the internet, or if it's a credit card company, you can find it on the back of the credit card. There's always a 1-800 number on the back of your credit card. Call that number. Most legitimate companies won't ask for your full credit card number because they already have that if you're trying to do a verification. Again, it's different if you're trying to order something. If you call Macy's up, hey, can you guys, send out this jacket? They obviously need your full credit card to do it. So just be wary. When people are asking for your full credit card number, just be wary about it.
We have another chat out there. And if you get, is using a virtual account number for purchases online a good idea?
I'm not 100% familiar with them, to be honest with you. I don't know if they're any more secure than regular credit card numbers. So I can't really talk about that. I can look into that and get back to you and find out. We do have one specialist on our within our department who can maybe answer that better for you. I will look into that and get back to you. And I know there's another question here that says, if you get a phone call from a potential caller, what's the best thing to do? Just start asking questions. Start looking for the red flags. Like I said, very rarely will legitimate people call you up. Now, I have got legitimate calls from the bank asking me that there's suspicious activity on my account and they want to verify some stuff. That's legit. What separates them from the non-legit is they won't ask you for the full credit card number because they already have that information. There's two people that have the credit card information, me and the credit card company. Those are the two people I know that don't need the number. So if they start asking you for stuff like that, just start asking questions too. Like I said, look for the red flags, the deep accent, full credit card numbers, stuff like that, where what they're doing is they're fishing for information. They don't have your information. They're trying to get you to give it to them. And they're very tech savvy at doing it. Now, don't think that they're all, even people that are overseas, in India and Nigeria, they still have legitimate people that speak fluent English that you wouldn't even think twice about. So just start asking the questions. And if it's anything to do with the credit card, like I said, just tell them you're going to call them back.
We have one raised hand with Jody, if you can ask your question.
Yes, Officer Perez, this just happened yesterday. I had an issue with my credit card. I called the number on the back of the card. I just got very uncomfortable because they did ask for my full credit card number. I said, no, I only give the last 4 numbers. Well, not anymore. We need the whole thing. So I said, what other form of verification would you ask? Can you ask for? So no, we still have to have your full credit card number. I said, but you have that. So in the end, because I made the call to them, I did give it to them. Did I just make a huge error?
Probably not. If you called a legitimate company, I mean, there might be some out there that need the full number, but you did the right thing. You said, how else can I prove my identity? Typically, the credit card companies also have your social security number. You say, hey, can I give you the last 4? Or sometimes you signed up and they ask for your mother's maiden name or something. There's usually security questions that they've gone through, so that you don't have to do that.
And but they still demanded the full number, which I said, this doesn't sound right.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't see that often. I mean, I guess there are some companies out there that still do that. Was it a major company? You don't have to tell me who it is. Okay.
Citibank. I mean, huge company. Every time
I would always say, hey, can I talk to a manager or can I talk to somebody above you? I really don't feel comfortable. I've been the victim of identity theft before. I don't feel comfortable giving you the full number. How about I give you the last 6? So
yeah, okay.
Again, major companies that have been breached. We're gonna go over one of these real quick, and that's Equifax. I know I've talked about that before. They had a huge breach years ago, and you can go online to see whether you were part of that. I think the link is still active. I know they've kind of reached a settlement for people to pay out some people that were compromised, but Equifax, I mean, that's the damn credit bureau. If you can't trust them, who can you trust to keep your credit stuff secure? So again, there's some big names on there. Anthem, Chase, again, Chase is always on there. Home Depot, Yahoo had 3 billion email accounts. You think, what's the big deal? An email that doesn't have financial information, but it probably does. And a lot of people use their email as their their username. So just something to think about. If you, I talked about if you go to that website right there for Equifax, you can find out whether you've been compromised or not. And Equifax has all of your information. So again, 70% of companies that have been compromised, their information is out there. So go to that website, equifaxsecurity2017.com. I think it's still active. You put your information in there and they'll tell you whether you've been compromised or not. I did it a couple of years ago and me and my wife have both been compromised. Again, more companies will skip over some of the stuff. I talked about this earlier, some of the genealogy sites, ancestry.com, 23andMe. The thing about that is they're great sites for trying to find lost relatives, but there's a lot of information on there, like death certificates. They used to have social security numbers on there when they first started. They took that stuff down because it's documents is what ancestry.com is, pictures and documents of past relatives. So, you find out somebody's deceased and they have a social security number, boom, you can start opening up accounts under the deceased person's name. So familytreenow.com is probably the worst, only because it's so hard to get out of, to cancel the service. So it's one of the lesser ones. I know a couple years ago, it was like impossible to try to cancel out of there. Some of the new ones, a lot of Airbnb scams for those that like to do rentals. My wife and I use Airbnb all the time. I've seen when I was at Cal State Fullerton, students getting scammed on fake property rentals. So they didn't actually do the Airbnb. They were either contacted through a fake email phishing expedition, or they went to a fake website, a non-Airbnb site to do the rental, which looked real because it had the Airbnb logo. It had rental properties on there. For those of you that don't know what Airbnb is, it's a service where people either rent out rooms or their entire home or apartment to people that are looking. It's usually a little bit cheaper than a hotel. So it's, instead of going to a hotel and paying $150 a night, you can go to Airbnb. Let's say you're going to Seattle for 2 days. You go to Airbnb, see if you can rent out somebody's full apartment or house or a room in their house. It's good because the people that own property make a lot of money from selling that. Selling like if you have an extra bedroom and you're cool with having people in your house that you don't know, boom, you can rent it out for $50 a night. When it works out, it's great. But again, Airbnb fake rentals. Home improvement stuff, we see this a lot for older adults. I always tell you, if somebody's going door to door, it's probably not legit, or it's probably somebody that's like a handyman that's not licensed and he's trying to make a couple extra bucks. I work in the city of Menifee, and that includes the city of Sun City, which is the highest population of 55 and older adults in all of Southern California. I can't believe what some of these people are falling for. We get this one a lot, especially we see either home improvement or we see solar, or we say, hey, we're in the area. They never have a business card. They never have a legit shirt. They might have some, flyers to give you. It's usually all bogus. So just be careful about people going door to door. And then Netflix, so many people with Netflix stuff, they tell you, hey, your payment's been declined. And probably half the population subscribes to Netflix. So that's something that's legit. Again, you go to update your information. It's a scam site. Same thing over and over again. Amazon, same thing. Veterans, you get a call from the VA and they're asking for donations or solicitations. They always do it either for firefighters, for veterans, or police officers. Hey, we're calling from the Fallen Police Officers Association. We're trying to raise money, our annual campaign fund. And it sucks because it reduces, it makes you think twice about the legitimate ones that actually do that. So I know my dad's always like, hey, I got this phone call. Should I donate to them? And I said, who's it from? And that's where I got that from. It was like the Fallen Police Officers Association. I said, I wouldn't. I don't know if it's legit or not. And you can always Google stuff too, because you're probably not the first person that's ever been scammed. So if you think it's fishy, it probably is. Just put in Google, put in veteran scam or something, Amazon scam, credit card scam, and there'll probably be 20 other people like, don't fall for this. I lost $1,000. So make sure you do that. This is a good one. We always see this at airports nowadays, the charging cable scam, right? You go to Starbucks, you go to the airport, you're like, oh man, my phone's dying. They have charging cables there, you plug in. Some of those aren't legit, similar to skimmers where they put the skimmer over the ATM machine. These could be fake charging cable scams where you're downloading the information from your phone. And we all know there's a ton of information on people's phones. So it's called juice jacking, where they download your information or everything that's on your phone, passwords, credit card companies, credit cards that have been stored in your credit card, Apple Pay, Google Pay, they get all that information. So just give it a little tug, give that wire a little tug, or try to follow where that wire is plugged into. I know at the airport at LAX, they just have wires coming out of the wall. They're like, I don't know where these things are plugged into. So I never do that. I bring my own charging cable, plug into the electricity, and do it that way. I never use outside charging cables, but again, most people probably wouldn't think twice about that. We talked about the familytreenow.com. It's like impossible to get rid of. Here's a real thing. If somebody's getting irritated, they won't let you opt out and cancel it. Natural disaster scams, we see that all the time. Hey, this is Bob calling from the Red Cross, trying to raise money for Hurricane Katrina or whatever the local disaster is. Again, you could always go online and donate. You could always call them back. So a lot of people that are applying for assistance. So we saw this in Katrina a lot. It went through the roof. Hey, FEMA's here. They're giving out money to victims, people that have lost homes, to citizens in the area. You just have to pay the fee. There's never a fee. FEMA doesn't charge a fee to get assistance. They don't charge a fee to give you money. So a lot of it doesn't make a lot of sense. But again, they're preying on people that are, in desperate situations. All right. So this is a good one, and I'm going to show you how relevant this is. If you've never been to these two websites, make sure you go to them today, especially Spokeo.com. So Spokeo and Intellius, there's a couple other ones too. These are sites where you could put people's information in, and you can actually get some information for free. If you're willing to pay the $2.99 trial or the $10.99 a month, whatever the price is, you can get everybody's information. Everybody. I'm going to show you what I found on myself just doing the free search in 2 minutes. I did it last night. Here it is right here. So this is me. I went to Spokeo.com. I put in my name. Of course, I have a popular name. There's 1,000 Perez's in Southern California. I was able to break it down. I don't live in Corona Del Mar anymore, but I used to. So this is the free information. It has my real age there. So somebody trying to get information has my name, my middle name, my age, and it shows where I've lived in. Those are all legit addresses that I've lived in. It tells you who you're related to. Some of the people on there, I have no idea who they are, but it's got my dad on there, my grandmother, and my wife. And then if you want to pay, if you go on to the next screen that says see results, you can get this information. Again, this is all free. Sorry, I'm going crazy here. This is all free. A lot of it's blacked out because they want you to pay for the information. You hit unlock profile, you put your credit card information in. This is a legit site. So, and I think you can do like a 7-day trial for $2.99. You can get my phone and email information, legit stuff. I can tell you right now, one of those is my old phone number. You can get my address history. You can get my family members. You can get where I've lived in the past 20 years. You can get my email addresses and my social media accounts. This is all free right here. Just to get that portion. Now to get the detailed information, you'd have to pay for it. But if you were a scammer, it'd be worth it to pay the $10.99, $19.99 a month to get unlimited accounts. I'll tell you why this is important, because this is the big one that we see in Menifee right now. We get once a week, we get this phone call. Somebody gets a text message and it says, we're going to kill you and your family. We're going to say, we're going to kill your family if you don't send us $2,500 right now. Now, if you got that text message from an unknown number, it would be scary because they use the word kill. So, but you're probably like, no, who's this? What makes it legitimate is they throw in real family members' names, and they probably get it from that Spokeo site or that Intellius site or the other handful of sites that do the same thing. So I can get a text right now that says, hey, you better send us some money. Otherwise, we're going to start killing some of your family members. To show that we're serious, we're going to kill your dad, Bob, in Ohio, and your sister, Linda, in Buffalo, wherever they're from. That would definitely make the hair on the back of your neck stand up if they started saying legitimate people that you knew and were related to you. And then what they do to make it even more dramatic is they send pictures of dead bodies of previous people that they've killed who didn't respond. So people are scared. They're sending $2,500. 2,500 is a lot of money, but it's not an amount that a lot of people wouldn't have. It might hurt a lot of people. Nobody wants to lose $2,500, but they're very smart about it. It's not a greedy amount, and a lot of people will send that money over, and it's gone. It's not the cartels. It's some dude sitting at his desk in Utah that's sending out these emails or these text messages. So again, be wary of anyone that's contacting you for stuff like that. I showed Russ and Bill an email I got recently, or a text message I got recently. I'll have to show this again, but I'll read it to you. It's from a weird address. It's a text message, but it came in as like an email, and it says Wells Bank Support, not Wells Fargo, Wells Bank Support. Verify your account within 25 hours to avoid access locked with the exclamation point, and it gives a weird address to click. But again, if you have a Wells Fargo account, you might not think, I don't, that's why I knew it was a scam. I would know anyway, but you know, they send that out to 10 million people. 600,000 people have Wells Fargo accounts, and 50 of them actually click on that link. So there's a lot of money to be made. We laugh at people that fall for this stuff, but a lot of people are falling for it without even thinking twice. Now, just to make it more uneasy, this is a device. I talked about this last year. This is a device that you could get right now if you have an Apple iPhone or any Apple phone. So if you have an iPhone, you could go online right now. And this is the old generation. They're probably up to like generation 4 right now. And you can get this thing which plugs into your phone. It's called FLIR. It's the same device. It's the same technology that police helicopters use when we're looking for somebody in like a desolate area. We do it by heat. It's heat activated, and it shows you, you always see like police chases with the helicopter, and then they put the FLIR on, and you see the heat outline of somebody in the bush. And that's how they find people. For $199, you could get this for your Android or for your Apple phone. You plug it in, and it'll show you the heat sensors on a surface that somebody's touched. And you're like, what does that have to do with identity theft? Whenever we go and we put in our passcode, right? So it's not enough that somebody just has your credit card or your debit card number. They also would need the password to use your debit card number. Now, how would they get your password? Especially when you cover up, when you put it in. I know people always cover up. That's good. You should do that. Some of the ATM machines have a little cover so people can't see you're putting the code in. What this does is, this is really popular at grocery stores. So you'll go to Albertsons, you'll take your credit card out to pay for your items or your debit card. You'll slide it in the machine. You're being extra careful. So you cover it, you put your code in. And what happens is the cashier is in on it. So they have your credit card number, and the person in line after you has this device on their phone. What they do is they take a picture of the pin pad, the machine where you usually put your code in, and it'll show you what numbers you pressed. Now, the brighter they are, the more recent it is. So the last number you hit will be the brightest. The first number you hit will be have the least amount of glow. So they just put the from brightest to darkest in backwards, and that's your PIN code. That's how sophisticated people are getting. So we do see this once in a blue moon, but it's a real easy way to get your PIN number. Again, this is a picture of it. You can see the orange, which would be actually, so this PIN number would be 54321. Now, obviously that's not typically a real number. You just go backwards. Super easy to do. You can get it on FLIR.com. I want to talk to you about the internet. We're going to talk about 3 different things. I know a lot of people have heard about the deep web and the dark web, but they don't really know what that is. That's actually a real thing. I know people just think it means like shady websites on the internet. The internet is really 3 levels, and you need to understand what is what, because the bulk of identity theft and fraud isn't at the level that you're on. So most people, you go to google.com, you go to Amazon to buy products online, you go to Target, Grubhub, you get delivery services, anything that you typically go to yahoo.com, That's all the surface web. That's what most people know. They don't realize that there's other 2 levels below that. Now there's the deep web and the dark web. Some of these things you could actually buy a human being on the web through one of these websites. Now, if you wanted to buy somebody, you probably couldn't go at the surface web, right? That's just the everyday use. And that's the least amount used. So the deep web is mostly used. And that's a lot of legal and government documents is typically on the deep web. Stuff that you would need some type of ultimate password, some ultra password to get into. Most people, a lot of the government agencies, a lot of the big banks and universities store their information on the deep web. Again, it's a lot harder to get access to. And then there's the dark web. And that's where all the illegal stuff is coming on. When they steal your credit card company, they sell it on the dark web, and it's paid for in cryptocurrency. Typically, the most known one is Bitcoin. Just untraceable stuff. But you can buy drugs, people, credit card numbers, any shady thing you can think of, you could buy on the dark web. And it's not as easy to access as just like logging onto your computer. You'd have to have special programs to run it. Again, the surface web or the open web is what most of us use. Social media, Google accounts, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. That's the base level. The deep web is not the dark web. Sometimes people use those interchangeably. They're not. They're 2 separate things. It's only accessible through certain browsers. Like I said, you couldn't go to Google and access the deep web. You'd have to go to a specific browser. They're unindexed web databases, and search engines don't reach them. So when you put in a Google search or a Yahoo search for something, they don't search the deep web or the dark web because they don't have access to them. We're going to go to the dark web, and that's the encrypted online content. Now, again, it's not used as often, but it is where they get the shady stuff. So when people steal your credit card numbers, you always hear, yeah, they sold my credit card number. To who? Who buys these things? There's people out there, they do. They have their own accounts on the dark web, and they have access to it, and they buy all this information, and they'll either resell it again. If you think about WikiLeaks a couple years ago, Julian Assange or whatever his name was, he was on the dark web. That's where he was leaking all those Hillary Clinton emails and classified secrets by the government. That was all leaked on the dark web. Child porn up the wazoo on there, and I'm talking about like legitimate, disgusting stuff that would make your heart cringe, especially if you have kids. It's some of the stuff you can see on there. All right, so we've gone through a lot of the stuff. We've talked about identity theft. I think we come up with the basis of what it is. I mean, the legal definition you can see here on the screen. One person using personal information gathered from sources takes on the identity of another without their permission. That's key. And conducts a variety of activities using that identity. Well, I don't even know what that means, right? It's just somebody taking your info that shouldn't have your info, posing as you, and getting benefits from it, typically money. It's covered in the penal code there. We talked about how hard it is for law enforcement to handle it. California penal code is 530.5A. We can charge somebody, but actually getting somebody, put through the DA's office, it's almost impossible. And it could be a felony or a misdemeanor. It depends on the monetary value. Usually if it's over $1,000, they'll put it as a felony, although California, nothing's a crime anymore. So it's probably always going to be a misdemeanor. We talked about this. Identity theft is not easy to prosecute. The majority of identity theft is just not solved. I mean, there's just too much of it. They don't have the resources. And again, government agencies would have to be the ones to do it. But should we be worried about it? Yeah, we should. 1 in 33 households discovered at least one type of identity theft during the previous year. 1 in 33. I bet you it's more than that. And that's just recent ones. Households with the highest income and those headed by persons ages 18 to 25 were the most likely victims. We talked about that and why we did that. 1 in 5 victimized households spent about 2 months resolving the problem. And that's probably low level. If you get anything more than, a couple $1,000s, it's probably going to be more like a year. And identity theft is of greater concern to adults with older children at home than those with younger children at home. So typically there's more money with the more people you have at the house that are older, they typically have more money. Right? We're not seeing too many 12-year-olds get scammed. I'm going to skip over some of this just for time's sake. Again, it's jurisdictional problems which really cause concerns for law enforcement because we have to, for me in Menifee to prosecute a crime, it would probably have to happen in Menifee and I'd have to have a suspect. And we typically don't have either one of those information. We just know that somebody's been scammed. We'll have a victim. Hey, somebody got my credit card number and they made all these charges. Who made that credit card company? We try to backtrack. I mean, it could have been a year ago. We talked about Equifax from 2017. They still have all that information. I can guarantee at some point, maybe in 10 years from now, one person out there is going to have their information compromised. To try to backtrack for the last 12 years where you've used that credit card or where you've used those numbers, it would be impossible. $16 billion stolen in 2017. Now, again, that number has come down a little bit 2020, and that's because of COVID, but it's a big business. If there wasn't money to be made in it, people wouldn't be doing it. It's a big money business. It's a low risk, high reward. And I hate to say that as a law enforcement officer, but it's low risk because it's hard to get caught and it's high reward. Even when you do get caught, it's usually a slap on the wrist, especially in California. The good news, though, after all that bad news I just told you, is that most people are taken for less than $100. Again, it's typically the person that gets your number and they try to start buying stuff online, and the credit card company or the bank just is onto it. The bank does a pretty good job of finding out about fraudulent charges. They have all these systems in place that just raise red flags. They monitor your spending, where you go, where you're at. And then when something is outside of that, they'll freeze your account. They'll put a hold on it. I'm sure we've all had I went to get gas in Compton once. I went to a soccer game in Dominguez Hills, and I stopped to get gas at the Shell gas station there in Compton, right off the 91 freeway, and it wouldn't take my credit card. And I knew I had money in there, or my debit card. So I called the bank and they said, "Hey, are you in Compton right now trying to buy gas?" I said, "Yeah, that's me." They're like, "Oh, okay." It didn't seem like you and from your purchase history. So we wanted to make sure it wasn't a fraudulent charge. So they do monitor that stuff. So the stuff that's most misused is government documents, tax returns, social security cards, driver's license. Although credit card fraud is the biggest thing, it doesn't reflect here. You'll probably have credit card fraud is the most chance you'll have some fraud. The biggest misuse, especially when we're talking about big loss, is government documents, people that are starting to open accounts and posing as you. So the national average loss for credit card fraud is nearly $3,000. That's nationally, and that's pretty much, and this is from credit card fraud. I'm not talking the little nickel and dime stuff they're doing there, but the big time stuff. When they have your credit card number and they've made their own credit card with credit card from your number, typically you have almost $3,000. Top 5 states, this always fluctuates. California is always number 2. I don't know how we're not number 1. I have no idea. If you go and you run these numbers, you'll see different people are always number 1. I think last year when I did this, District of Columbia was number 1. I have no idea where that stat came from. California has more identity theft in terms of losses. Nevada has more credit card identity theft, and that's got to be from Las Vegas. Again, we're going to skip over some of the stuff. Why don't we stop here real quick, and we'll take some questions, and then I'll tell you how they're getting your information. Could it be that during COVID, with employees working from home, the employee doing wrong by asking your full number? Yeah, that could be. And then we kind of touched on that. Employees working from home, and we see this a lot even without COVID. To be honest, I think when everything goes back to normal, if it ever does, we're going to see a lot more people working from home because it's probably just cheaper for companies to do that. Instead of paying for a building and phone lines, you just work from home. You have your own phone, your own computer, and they just pay you from there. So yeah, they probably have less access. For me as a police officer, I don't have access on my computer to some of my emails and definitely some of the information that I do on the computers at work, because those are secure and my computer isn't. It's probably the same thing with the credit card companies. When people work from home, they have less security, and that's why they're probably asking for your full credit card number. Like we talked about before, when the lady that's from Citibank asked for a full number, she's probably working from home. That makes a lot of sense, and that's probably what's happening. She doesn't have secured access to the real Citibank computer. She has limited access, so she probably doesn't have access to the full credit card number, and she has to get that from you. Is it better to pay bills or make donations by check or credit card? I had a check stolen out of the mailbox. My bank told me to pay by credit card only. So in a couple minutes, I'm going to talk about checks and why you should never, ever write a check. I don't even use them anymore. It's kind of it's an isolated, desolate thing anymore. No one really uses checks anymore. I know that a lot of older adults do, because that's just how they grew up, and they don't feel secure giving plastic. My dad hates giving his credit card number out. He likes to write checks, but I'm going to show you what information is on a check. Basically, you're just giving anybody all of your information on a check right there, and they can be easily forged. You can make them on your computer, but we'll talk about that in a couple minutes. How identity theft works. So most of the stuff that we've talked about so far are what we call phishing expeditions. Phishing with the PH, not an F. So if you think about fishing, you put the reel out there and you try to see what's in the ocean, what you can catch. You get a bunch of garbage before you actually get the big fish, right? It's the same thing. They send out 10 million emails or text messages from, quote unquote, Chase, Wells Fargo. They know the majority of people that know it's a scam, but there are a ton of people that don't. That's a phishing expedition. They're putting the reel out for you, hoping you'll bite and give them the information that they don't have yet. We talked about stolen mail from mailboxes. That still happens occasionally. Mail theft is a lot of work for people to do nowadays, though, because a lot of people don't get, credit card bills or any type of statements mailed to their house. A lot of people do paperless. So it's not as lucrative to go through somebody's trash or break into their mailbox anymore. Obviously, it still happens. I showed you my mailbox from a couple of years ago. But it's a lot of work for probably a little bit of payoff. It's probably easier for them just to do everything online. Receipts from purchases. Another thing we do too is, have you ever gone to the ATM and somebody has their slip that they never grabbed from the time before, the person before you went? Now you probably can't get a whole bunch of information on there, but it'll show you somebody's balance. If you saw somebody had a balance of $100,000 and they just left, that's probably somebody you want to follow home or get their license plate. You can get some information from people's license plates. We know they're at the bank. If they're at Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, you know what bank they go to. You can get some information out there that you probably don't realize. Again, little bits and pieces, and they start putting it all together. Again, the point of all this stuff, we're not really talking about the huge things where they wipe out your savings. We're talking about the little everyday stuff that you can do to protect yourself. So just start asking questions when you get incoming phone calls. Again, those VoIP numbers, those internet phone numbers we talked about earlier, they can pretty much get any area code. And sometimes, the phones do a pretty good job nowadays of saying potential spam, incoming call. I never pick those up, but some get through. If somebody has a VoIP number from a 949 number, I have a 949 area code from when I was in Orange County. I think, it's probably somebody I know, or even a 714, or even now I live in Riverside County. If I see a call come in from a 951, I think it's probably work or something. So they got a little bit smarter. If I see a random number from 827, I know it's probably an internet call, a telemarketer, or somebody that I don't know. I get credit card statements in the mail and bank account statements in the mail. Is that wrong? I still do too, to be honest with you. For some of them, for me, I love having the paper. It's probably not the best thing to do just because it has a lot of information there. Now, typically they don't have, or sometimes they do, they might have your full account number on there. A lot of times it's X'd out. Like if it's a credit card number, the first 12 numbers will be X'd out and it'll just have the last 4 numbers. But again, that's information that you're giving people. Even if they have a partial credit card number, they have your name, your address, what credit card you have, what bank you go to, and the last 4 digits of your number. Let's just be honest. When you call somebody up at a bank, the tellers usually aren't the most brightest people. That's probably the lowest level at a bank is the phone taker. When you call the intake, the caller you talk to, that's probably the lowest, least paid person, right? And they usually build up from there. So it probably wouldn't take somebody with average intelligence to get past some of their questions there. All right. We're going to skip over some of this. So start thinking about some of the important numbers associated with a person that thieves might want to steal or gain access to. Obviously the big ones: social security number, which is easy to get, driver's license numbers, bank account numbers, passport numbers. They have a unique number, especially when you have the card, the little passport cards nowadays. The biggest thing you always want to try to save is your PIN number. We talked about that FLIR where they can, that's a lot of work. We don't see that often, but that is a technology that they can go to. But if you think about it, you're physically inputting your PIN number in the machine. That's going somewhere, whether it's encrypted or not. We've seen big companies, which you think probably have the best type of software out there and to fight ransomware, malware, viruses. Equifax, Target, Chase, Aetna, big name companies that are still getting breached. Why is that happening? And that information is somewhere. And again, that's no fault of your own. What are we not going to use Aetna? We're not going to have health insurance. We're not going to go to Blue Cross. Equifax, if you have any type of credit, you have no choice but to use them, right? It's one of the 3 major bureaus, credit card reporting bureaus. So a lot of the stuff is out of our hands, but we want to be able to try to, kind of delete some of the information that's out there. There's also websites out there that you can go look and try to hide your online footprint. We're not really going to touch that too much there, but you can Google that later. Health insurance accounts. I know that a lot of the health insurance accounts, they actually send your full number in there. I don't know why they do that. I have Blue Shield. They always send me my updated reports every time me, my wife, or my daughter goes to the hospital, and there's the full account number on the paper trail. So I don't know why they do that. They should have access to all that stuff, whether you have to call in or not, and just give the last 4 or 6 numbers. So just think of that when you give any of this information that's on the screen right now. These are the numbers that people are looking for. And again, they're doing phishing expeditions. They're waiting for you to give them that information that they don't have. I try to do everything as much as I can online, but I still have some paper things because I like to see it in front of me. But it is easy. It's probably not the wisest thing to do. I know we just touched on that in the question. It's just information you're giving people that they can get. On average, it takes 132 days before identity theft is discovered. 132 days. That's a lot of time. It's like three and a half months before you even realize that you've been swindled or somebody's opened up a bank account. And now you got to try to backtrack everything. And that's just on average. I see people over a year, they never check their credit report. By the way, you can check your credit report for free. You go to annualcreditreport.com. You can get a full credit report, the full one, in 1 year, I believe, for free. You can go to other sites. I have Credit Karma, but there's a billion other ones. I'm not advocating for Credit Karma. I love them. It's an app. I use it on my phone. I get access through my fingerprint, and then it shows you what accounts you have, what your credit score is. The credit scores aren't always super accurate, but they're within like 10 or 15 points. And it'll show you if new accounts have been opened. I get alerts. Everybody here should have some type of credit monitoring service. So make sure that if you don't now, some of them are free. If you want like ultimate coverage, you might have to pay $19.99 a month, but it could be well worth it. We'll go over some of that in a little while. Again, trying to restore some of your credit. The FTC is the one that oversees all of this stuff. It's just a hassle. You can register your stuff, and if you do get things on your credit, you can freeze your accounts so that they can't be used anymore. and unfreeze them at any time. So sometimes it's as easy as just calling up the credit card companies themselves, or you can call up any of the 3 major bureaus and they'll freeze everything for you. So we talked about phishing, just a fraudulent way of trying to obtain information from people, relevant, important information that they normally wouldn't have. This is just an example of stuff. Barclays, which is a major bank overseas, it's out here too. It's an internet bank too over here. You know, they have a lot of spelling mistakes. This was an email that was sent. You know, just red flags to look for. They don't have your name. They have valued customer. So if you start looking at some of the red flags, you can start to get a little smarter on how to protect yourself. This is my daughter, Brooklyn. She's 1 year old. I was telling Russ a little bit earlier. She got a social security number about 3 months ago, and I recently got an automated phone call. It wasn't even a person. It was just the automated voice. And I shouldn't have answered the phone. It was one of those weird phone numbers I told you about that I never answer, but I do. And it was the IRS, quote unquote, telling me that she owed some back taxes. My 1 year old daughter owes some back taxes. So they're coming after her. Again, this is the phishing stuff we talked about. You know, be careful about what information you're filling online. I got this a couple years ago, and this one has died down a little bit, but I like to show this. If anybody's ever had this pop up on their screen, let me know. This is a virus. It says your computer's been locked. I love it. It says the Department of Justice, Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI is coming for you. And then, you know, if you want it unlocked, you just gotta, you know, send them a green dot money pack, or go to Rite Aid or Circle K or CVS or 7-Eleven and send them some money to the FBI. That's how they'll unlock your computer. So that was pretty big a couple years ago. It's not as popular anymore as people are onto it, but there's some version of that always pops up. And again, that's a virus that's on your computer. A lot of viruses too will pop up and say, hey, if you want to remove this virus, download our software. All you're doing is re-downloading it. You're paying them to put more viruses on your computer. So only use virus software from legitimate sources. You could always go Google top 10 spyware or ransomware or malware. And there's a lot of free ones too that I never pay for any of that stuff. There's a lot of legit free ones on there. So what we saw when I was on campus was we saw a lot of those skimmers. We saw the Nigerian scam, which is you'll get emails. I have one on my email right now. I was going to share my screen. It was kind of funny that you've inherited, you know, $50 million that's overseas somewhere, and that, you know, if you want to get it, times of the essence, then, you know, you just got to pay the $29.95 processing fee, and they'll send out your $10 million check. You see that a lot. This is a good one. I touched on this earlier, online sales. So if you're ever selling anything online, eBay, Amazon, Craigslist, any of those services, and you get contacted from somebody that's far away, that's a red flag. Let's say you're just selling some sneakers, a shirt, a jacket, a couch, your iPhone, an everyday item that anybody could get locally. If you get an email from somebody in London who wants to buy your iPhone, that's a red flag. I'm sure they have a lot of phones between here and London that the person can get for the same price. And they'll send you a check, overnight express you a check for $1,000 for your $600 phone. They'll tell you cash the check, take out $600 for the phone, $100 for your time and effort and shipping, and then just mail me back $300 into the phone. And again, people do that all the time, especially on campus. I used to see that all the time. You get like once a month, somebody was doing that. And again, it's a scam because the check just hasn't been red flagged by the bank yet as fraudulent. But in 2 or 3 days, it will, and the bank's gonna take their money back when they find out that check is a fraud. We talked about some of this. Restaurants and retail chains and gas stations are the biggest for skimmers. We hit that. So that's what it looks like. For those of you who couldn't process or picture what I was talking about, this is, if you look at the bottom left picture there, you can see the legitimate access point for your credit card or ATM card, and then the skimmer above it, right? That the top picture is what it looks like when the skimmer's on. If you look at the top right picture, the skimmer is over the legitimate machine. You wouldn't think twice about that. If you saw that right now, you'd probably just put your credit card in. And again, you're going through 2 machines. You're going through the skimmer into the legitimate machine. so the screen would actually work legitimately. And you put your ATM password in too. So again, ways to provide it, give it a little tug. They usually just pop right off. They're not on securely at all. Only use credit cards with chips in it. We talked about that. That the chip makes it a little bit more secure and harder to get the number off the card. Checks. Somebody just talked about checks. Why we shouldn't write checks anymore. Look at all the information that you give somebody when you write a check. You tell them what bank you bank at. Your account number and your routing number is physically on the check. That's that bottom number there. You have your name. You've signed it. They know what your signature looks like. It would be real easy to either duplicate that check and write. You can buy blank checks right now. A lot of small businesses, people that start their own businesses, they go to Staples and they buy legitimate blank checks for legitimate purposes. They're actually going to write their small business check. You know, you could print anything on there. You could duplicate this check super easy, and you have all the information there. So somebody was asking about a VoIP. I only said the scammers use the VoIP accounts because they're super hard to trace. Somebody at our level of law enforcement would not be able to trace a VoIP number. Now, if you have a VoIP number and you're using it for legitimate purposes, it's got great things. I mean, it's got a lot of positive things about it. I'm just saying that a lot of the scammers use that because they want to make themselves not traceable. Again, are writing checks safe? You give people access to your money by giving them your account and your routing number. They don't even have to go to the bank. They can just write a check and then boom, they have access to it. And they know the way you signed your signature. Also, they can scan your old check and then have your actual signature. They can copy and paste it online. You can use something like Photoshop to duplicate the check and just change the name, who the person is written to. Fraud against seniors. Why are seniors such a vulnerable group? Usually, and again, if we looked at the most common places, Florida was number 3 on the list. And that's because we have a lot of people that are, that have worked, that have done their time, they've made their money, and now they're ready to retire. They want to, they want to retire in luxury. They want the hot, warm weather. They go there, they're set for life. They might have a pension, they have an IRA, a 401k. You see that a lot more established than somebody who's maybe like 30. Somebody who's 30 probably doesn't have as much money in their 401k as somebody who just retired at 60. So there's a lot more money to be had. Older adults also usually aren't as tech savvy. I mean, even to log on to the Zoom here, we had to, even myself, I mean, I'm 47 and, I think I'm pretty tech savvy. I had to manipulate a couple of things and figure some stuff out to be able to share my screen and to get my camera to work and a whole bunch of stuff. So, people usually aren't as tech savvy when they get older. My dad used to be a computer guru. Now I talked about him getting scammed by a fake tech call. So it's hard to keep up with technology nowadays, and it's going to be more rampant as we get older too. This is a big thing too. People that are older, they may not report the crimes. And why do you think that is? Mainly because they don't want their children to think that they're not capable of going over their own finances. They don't, if I tell my son that, somebody got my credit card number and got access to my account, he might not think I'm of a sound mind, and I might have early onset of dementia, and he's never going to let me use any of my stuff, and he's going to try to take over all my accounts. Or they're just too embarrassed. They don't want to admit things, even though it happens to everybody. You don't want people to start questioning your mental capacity just because you made a silly mistake. And we see that a lot too. People that really aren't that old in the terms of things. I mean, 70 really isn't that old at all. I mean, people, we do see people start losing a little mental capacity at that age, but for the most part, life is normal. Maybe your body's not as spry as it used to be, and you got a couple more aches when you wake up, but it's business as usual for you. You wouldn't want somebody to start questioning you at such an early age and try to take over your finances. Telemarketing fraud for seniors is huge. So I think I've hit the nail on the head and beat this thing to death When people call you up, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. We're not seeing a lot of the stuff nowadays where people actually have to call you up. This isn't the 80s. This isn't the 70s where people were selling Amway door to door. This is not that time anymore. I mean, Amway still exists. It's all online. Avon, nobody's going door to door selling Avon anymore, or Tupperware. Those days are gone. Obviously, Avon and Tupperware still exists, but you do that stuff all online. If somebody's knocking at your door, if somebody's calling you, try to tell you something, it's probably not legitimate. We'll go a little bit longer. We're almost done with this presentation, and I really want to take some questions and go a little in depth about some stuff. So why is it on the rise, identity theft? Because it's easy to do. Like I said, it's high risk. I mean, it's low risk, high reward. Automation gets everything faster. You could do everything from your home. People that are really good at this stuff, hackers, they do this from their laptop. They do it from their cell phone. They can scam you out of thousands of dollars from their cell phone at home on the beach. It's super easy to do, hard to get these people. More computer hackers now go for monetary returns, not the thrill of conquering another computer. There's a lot of money to be made on this. We talked about all the billions of dollars that people lose every year. What's being done? Increased reporting. Again, the more people report the same crime, the more resources that will be thrown to it by law enforcement. So if you call up and you say, oh man, I got swindled at McDonald's, somebody went to McDonald's and used my credit card that doesn't have access to it. Probably not a ton of resources. We might go there, hey, do you have cameras? No, we don't. There's not a whole lot we can do. Now, if we had 20 calls on that, yeah, we start setting up stings. We'd be looking at the employees. There'd be a lot more resources thrown at it. Increased consumer education and awareness of fraud tactics. That's the whole basis of me doing this presentation for everybody. I know I've thrown a ton of information at you, but just like pick one or two things and just start questioning people that are contacting you. Creditors are using fraud prevention tools effectively. I mentioned the credit union, which always calls me up. Hey, is this you making this charge? Yay or nay. They look at your spending habits and they know the technology is just getting a lot better. Constant upgrades to the web browsers, better filters, spyware. If you don't have malware or spyware or ransomware on your computer, get one. You can go to download.com or CNET, the letter C and the word net, N-E-T. CNET, I think it's .com. If you just Google either one of them, download.com, they take you to the same website. There's a ton of programs on there that you can download for free. I use Avast, A-V-A-S-T. I use Malwarebytes, M-A-L-W-A-R-E-B-Y-T-E-S, Malwarebytes, all for free. They'll monitor your computer access while they do it silently in the background. Now, if you can pay for stuff for the wazoo coverage, but the free stuff that they give is pretty legit. Not full coverage, obviously they have to make some money, but there's a ton of other stuff on there that you can get for totally free, no money or very low money. So ways to protect yourself and warning signs. Look for spelling mistakes. Look for people that aren't using your real name or fake account numbers or your one-year-old daughter, stuff like that. Explanation of medical benefits. If you still have paper bills coming to your house and then they stop coming, someone's probably stealing them. So if you get calls from debt collectors for debts that are not yours, make sure those are probably legit, just on an account that somebody else opened under your name. So make sure you start checking your credit. I check it all the time. You need to do it at least once a year. I would recommend doing it at minimal twice a year. I do it probably every couple of weeks just to make sure nothing's on there. Get a credit monitoring service. Most of them are for free. They'll let you know. So every time you apply for a loan, I get a ding. So I recently bought a car and I got a car loan. I got a ding from Credit Karma. It says, there's been an account opened in your name, just so I know. It doesn't tell you, that's all the information it tells me. Now I know that's me because I can see what the account is and that I applied for it. But if I hadn't, I would know that somebody's using my credit and my information is out there. Notices from IRS, calls from the IRS. The IRS, they're not really going to do that. The IRS doesn't call you and ask you to send MoneyGrams for back taxes. It just doesn't happen. Calls or mail accounts from minor child's or grandchild's name. So I didn't touch on this, but this was an old one. We see a little bit less nowadays. About 5 years ago, this was really popular. you would get a phone call and somebody would say, "Grandma," or if it was the male, "Grandpa, is that you?" They wouldn't even give your name. You'd just be grandma or grandpa. Now, probably everybody in this chat room right now is most likely a grandmother or grandpa, or the overwhelming majority have grandkids. You would just assume that it's from your grandchild. "Grandma, I'm in jail. I need you to bail me out. Can you send, $1,500 like right now? Otherwise, I got to stay here. I was in spring break, or I was in Mexico, or fill in the blank wherever you were." That was a big one a couple years ago. I've seen it a little bit less. Now it's been replaced with that one I was telling you about before, where they have your information from Spokio or Intellius. So just keep that stuff in mind. Ask questions. Identity protection means treating your personal information with care. Remember, people can do a lot of damage with their information. It's like buckling your seatbelt or locking the doors at night. It's just something you do all the time. Make all this stuff a habit. Secure your social security number. Don't keep that card in your wallet. I guarantee you right now, there's 5 people in this room that have their social security card in their wallet. And only give out the necessary information when it's time to do so. We talked about this. Another reason, even if you're not the victim of identity theft or fraud, 1 in 4 people have major errors on their credit reports. Accounts that are still open that were closed years ago, stuff that was overcome. Look into all that stuff. Here's that annualcreditreport.com. If you haven't checked your report, go to that site today, tomorrow. It's totally free. You can get like 1 or 2 a year for free. Call up these numbers. Every credit report is every credit agency, all 3 of them, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. They're required by law to give you free credit reports every 12 months. Free. Look at other sites, LifeLock, Credit Karma. There's a ton of other ones. Credit Sesame, credit.com, all free sites, or that have minimal monthly charges to monitor your credit card. It's well worth every penny. I'm telling you right now, $19.95 a month is worth it. And I'm not affiliated with any of them. I don't care which one you use. I use the free one and it works great, but it's good to know what information is being placed on your credit and who is opening accounts under your credit, under your name. Only make purchases from trusted companies, from trusted websites. Again, if you get emails, it's probably a phishing thing. If you get pop-ups asking for specific information, just look at where it's coming from. Look at the IP address, the www. Whatever it is. Is that a weird address? If it is, think twice about it. Try to make a phone call from a legitimate 1-800 phone number. Here are some of the ones I was talking about. Identity Force, $19.95 a month. That's been reported as the best. I've never used them. According to the rankings of all the free ones, or all the credit monitoring companies, they have the best security. LifeLock is probably the most popular one, especially for older adults, but you can use any of these. Like I said, I use Credit Karma. You've probably seen the Karma with a K. You've probably seen some of the ads on TV before. And just, know when to reduce your risk. Make a police report if you do. I know it's hard for us to track, but always make a police report. Sometimes you have to do it. They make you do that before you even file a claim with whatever bank you're talking about. Again, protect your laptop, your usernames. Don't use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as a password. It's almost impossible to do that nowadays anyway. Some people make you use a capital, an exclamation point, a number, a lowercase. I know it's crazy, but the more numbers you use like that, the harder it is for people to get in. Those are the phone numbers if you ever want to see what's on your credit from each agency. Just make sure you order those credit reports. You want to file a complaint, you can do that through the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC.gov complaint. If you see some company with some shady tactics, make sure you report them. People need to know it, even if it's a legit company making shady things. Honestly, I would report Citibank to this FTC.gov complaint saying they didn't give me another option to identify myself other than giving them the full credit card number. So they'll make you sign an identity theft affidavit. end of a police report, and that equals an identity theft full report. So those things all need to happen. I know this was a ton of information. That's my information right there. That's my email. That's my work cell phone. I'm going to open it up for questions right now. But if you think of something later, maybe you're too embarrassed to ask something now, or you want to talk about a situation, call me up, send me an email. We'll talk about it. We'll get to the bottom of it. And I'll see what resources I can provide to you if you need some help or if you have some questions. How often should we change passwords? I hate changing passwords. Some companies make you do it every couple of months. I mean, if you have a secure password and you monitor everything, you probably wouldn't need to do it that often. If it's your birth date and your daughter's name or something like that, you know, I'd probably switch it up. If it's only a 5-digit password, if your name is Bob Smith and your password is B Smith, I'd probably be changing that up pretty quickly there. So again, most companies, legitimate companies, make you have a long password nowadays with uppercase, lowercase, underscore, and some type of special character to put them in. And then other companies make you switch up every couple months. So I know for law enforcement, they make us change our password every 3 months. So I talked about providing information. And again, I know that a lot of this is cut and dry and boring, and I'm not the most exciting person to talk to, but I'm telling you that it's out there. As a law enforcement officer, I promise you that it's happening to everybody. So if it happens to you, don't be embarrassed. I don't care how old or how young you are. It's happening to everybody. It's happened to me. I shared 8 examples with you, and I have more too. Those are just the ones that I thought maybe people could relate to. So it does happen all the time. So I'd love to hear some questions or talk about anything you guys want to have while we have a couple more minutes here.
Okay,
Why can't
Claire?
AT&T and other phone companies do something about constant fake phone calls? I have no idea. I've been asking myself the same thing for years. It's also hard to block phone numbers from the phone company too. For a while there, I was getting spammed from a legitimate company. I think it was Discover Card. And I didn't want the phone calls anymore. And I kept telling them to stop calling me, but it's hard to block calls. I don't know if they don't care. You can register your phone number on a list. It's supposed to stop spam phone calls, but I do it every year and I still get spam phone calls.
Yeah, well, you've given us a lot of information. A lot of it was scary, but you've given us some positive steps that we could do to take control over our credit and try to cut down on any chances of this happening to us.
Yeah. Let me sum it up in 1 second here. All that information, all 100 and whatever slides I had there, all 2.5 hours. The thing is this, it happens all the time. Monitor your credit, change your passwords. Remember, if it's too good to be true, it is. And if somebody's asking you for information, just start questioning it. Doesn't mean that it's not legit, but that's how all these phishing expeditions come by. If you think about there, criminals out there, they don't have your information yet. They have to get it somehow, whether it's a skimmer, whether they call you on a phishing expedition, go through your trash, break into your mailbox, hire somebody at the restaurant to give them the number. They have to obtain it from somewhere. It doesn't just manifest out of the air. They all of a sudden have your credit card number. So most of the time, unbeknownst to you, you're probably giving them the information yourself. Now, sometimes we can't. We talked about that. There's companies out there that are just dishonest. I mean, every profession is going to have some shady people involved in it. You know, nothing you could do about that. Nothing you can do about somebody that's working at Aetna giving away your information. Somebody said, I forgot my ATM receipt. Should I change my account number? No, I'm not sure if your account number is fully on there. I'm pretty sure it's not, because probably about 1/3 of the people always forget to grab their ATM receipt. I'm just saying though, like if you have a huge balance on there, you know, it might be a red flag, or it might be an alert to somebody that, hey, whoever had this account, it's got 80 grand in their account right now, because it shows you your balance typically.
Thank you so much for all the info.
I know it's a ton of info, but some of it's relevant. Just pick and choose, go through some of the PowerPoint, some of the things we talk, the talking points, and just say, hey, do I do that? Does that happen to me? Have I ever done that before? But just as soon as you get off here, go check your credit and see what you can do differently. We can all do something different.
Okay, well, thank you again for taking the time to come talk to us again. It's always
Always a
good to
pleasure.
have the same person come every year so we could get an update and someone familiar we could talk with.
I love doing it. I love educating people, and I love getting criminals off the street or beating them before they could even, swindle. Nothing bothers me more than somebody taking money from somebody, especially from somebody gullible. I hate, that's one of the reasons I became a cop, to stop stuff like that. So hopefully this information will stop somebody from getting money taken from them.